Welcome to this week's Stay of the Meta. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone who joined our Discord, did the trials, and played in our first team testing qualification tournament this past weekend. Congratulations to Cody Whittaker, Figured Base, Jane Olivia 96, Athena the Bun, Splash for Fixing, and G Funky for making the squad. We are now set for our Spotlight Atlanta, so if you're watching this and planning to attend, please come by and say hi to us at that event.
And for those of you who have been searching for a path to the Pro Tour, feel free to join our Discord, as we'll have an official team qualification tournament early in 2025, and those who make it will be part of our team testing process for the rest of that year.
Speaking of which, testing. I ain't jesting. Rebellion crew coming to your area for top 8 nesting. We're so dangerous. Don't mess with us. Your crew's grasp of the meta is at best tenuous. How can you hope to compete with the elite when you got burn spells making you sweat from your hands down to your feet?
We got Lords for your hordes. Comment below as we walk through Week 1 of Foundation Standard. Alrighty, so this last weekend was a hotbed of activity featuring 12 major tournaments and 96 top 8 spots. From that data, Dimir Tempo was out in force, taking 21 top 8 spots, though only a single trophy. Dimir continues to ask the question of which composition is going to win out, as we're seeing flex slots change across these builds.
And coming in second was Golgari Demons with 14 top 8s and 2 trophies. As predicted a few weeks ago, right? Llanowar Elves pushed this demon strategy past the others, and it's really been flying high through this first week.
Third place went to Mono White Control with 7 top 8s and 2 trophies. Mono White hasn't solidified on whether it bothers to splash another color, but it has picked the path of beating the crap out of red-based aggro. So going into a Week 1 field that featured Boros Burn and friends, this paid some dividends.
Yeah, and rounding out Tier 1, none other than Boros Burn with 5 top 8s and 2 trophies. There were 5 different ways to build red-based aggro going into Week 1, and this build outperformed the rest. Time to take notes and adjust. Burn 'em out is a thing.
In Tier 2, we kick things off with Xur's Domain. 6 top 8 slots and a trophy went to our Overlords and their pile of beans. Now, whether this list max can handle the heat is a question we need to answer, but for now, Domain is ready to pick on all those Mono White Control players and mid-range players.
Mono Red Aggro came in 6th overall with 6 top 8 slots and a single trophy. Now don't sleep on this build though. It has better scaling than Boros Burn with a lot of staying power.
Temur Prowess made it back to the Tier 2 world with 4 top 8s and a trophy this past weekend, reminding us that talented otters do exist, and if you can handle the hundreds of triggers, this deck might actually be cracked.
Rounding out Tier 2 is Golgari Ramp with 2 top 8s and a single trophy. This deck feels like a compromise between wanting your Overlord bean piles, but not wanting to concede to red-based aggro. Can it handle Dimir though? Question continues.
Over in Brewer's Corner, I'll be taking a look at Rakdos Pact and Gruul Raccoons. One of those lists just went 6-0 in the top 1,000 of Mythic, by the way.
Yeah, and I'll be highlighting Dimir Reanimator and Mono Black Vampires, one of which took down RCQ this past weekend. But let's kick things off with our Tier 1 archetype breakdowns, starting with Dimir Tempo.
Robert Beverly snagged a trophy at Sunday's 70-player RCQ in Columbus with Dimir Aggro, and let's talk about those pesky flex slots, all right? So I really like where this list went. First and foremost, we're seeing that 3-1 split on Spyglass Siren to Spectral Sailor. This is key. I think a lot of people are like, oh, you just go to 4 Spectral Sailor. Not so much. Spyglass Siren is going to be a little bit easier to work with Kaido, and it's also going to scale better in the early game, help you ensure your land drops, and occasionally just sit there in front of a bat as a 2-2 and say, no, you're not getting through. However, Spectral Sailor is great for the grind as the game goes on, so I like that we have this 3-1 split. I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, this build also went heavier into counter spells, playing 5 of them instead of the old 3 in the main, which likely is to account for the uptick in Golgari Demons, Domain, White Control, and Ramp. Last but not least, these Flood Pit Drowners. These are in over the Deep Cavern Bats. I don't know for sure about this, but my guess is they played a lot of mono red aggro matchups and thought, okay, we need to buy like a turn, maybe 2 turns. We're going to do this for that exact reason. This is just about tempo, and it really maximizes tempo when you're playing Enduring Curiosity and Kaido with it.
Yeah, and speaking of running into that mono red aggro matchup, can this deck reliably win in that matchup and still somehow go under Golgari and mono white?
I think it depends on the red-based aggro, right? Like I've played this against mono red and it did not feel great, but I played it also against Gruul Prowess, didn't see much of an issue there, and I've played it against Boros Burn and that felt pretty coin flippy. So it's really which red-based aggro deck shows up and how hard do you want to hedge? Because you can absolutely beat the crap out of mono red with Dimir, but if you do this, you're probably giving up flex slots against 3 or 4 other archetypes. You know, like those ghost vacuums don't necessarily have to be in the sideboard, but you're going to miss them when you play Oculus if you're not careful. So how hard can you afford to hedge? I think that's a big question that we still need to answer with this deck.
Yeah, and speaking of an archetype that's been hedging like crazy lately, let's talk about one half of that, Golgari Demons.
MTG Hulk smashed Sunday's 39-player MTGO challenge with Golgari Demons, cementing it in Tier 1 territory for the first week of Foundations, and let's look at what shifted. I mean, we've already seen the big shift. Llanowar Elves is here. We knew it was coming. Turn 2 Annexes, turn 2 Glissas, turn 2 Sentinels. For everybody that's like, oh, what happened to the other Demons lists? They don't have Llanowar Elves. That's literally the difference. They can't do turn 2 Annex and you can, so you're going to win that Demon's Mirror a majority of the time on that basis. That's a problem. So it's pushing the other Demons builds out. I also love that we did a 2-2 split on Ooze and Caustic Bronco. Ooze is this fantastic hedge for reanimation strategies that still is a must-answer threat against red-based aggro, and it's not bad in the mid-range as long as you go late in the game, right? Bronco, on the other hand, is terrible against red-based aggro, but fantastic if you're trying to go up against mid-range grindfests. So this split really characterizes that well. I will say they got one thing absolutely incorrect, and that is they only have 13 untapped green sources for turn 1. You're wrong. I'm just going to put that out there. Take a Fountain Port, shift it to a Murex. That at least lets you cheat into that 14th source, but it's absolutely incorrect to be less than 14 untapped green sources.
Yeah, and for those of you who haven't heard us talk about this yet, that's the Frank Karsten math. You got to have the right number of sources for what you're putting out there on the curve. But my question now, if this deck does well, do we start seeing single copies of Render Inert as a mirror breaker in decks like Dimir Aggro? What's going on there?
So we're only going to see that card if it makes sense, right? And part of that is, do they board out the Arcfiend against you? Because if so, then you just boarded in a dead card against them, and that's not great. Also, if they see that coming, if they're even slightly worried about that coming, they're just going to board out the Arcfiends. Now, I've gotten away with it as like a one-of in a deck as like a tutorable target, but outside of that, I don't know that Render Inert's going to happen. I think Vivian Reed is going to happen, because Vivian Reed is, in my opinion, the big mirror breaker for demons right now. Being able to blow up annexes and your demons for -1 feels amazing, and then if they don't kill Vivian, like, you're getting a 2-for-1 no matter what, but you might get like a 5-for-1 by the time they get rid of it. So to me, that's the mirror breaker. It's not going to be Render Inert because it's a little too narrow for that card, whereas Vivian Reed is always live, always an issue.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great comparison there. Render Inert, very narrow card. So, yeah. Vivian, one of the new Planeswalkers, already putting in work in those matchups. Okay. Let's move on to the next tier 1 archetype. Something I feel like we haven't discussed in a while, Mono White Control.
It's back. Austin Graham climbed a 270-player mountain at the 10K RCQ in Columbus this past Sunday to take it all down with Mono White Control. Now, looking at this build, we are back to a full 8 engines in the main. We've got the full playset of Innocence, we've got Caretaker's Talent, and that helps explain why you see Virtue of Loyalty, because it's triggering both of these, which makes a lot of sense when you need that. Let's also look at the fact that we're up to 10 removal spells early in the game. Clearly, this individual was tired of mono red. Clearly, they were ready to win, so they put in the work. And as you look at the sideboard, you see that with Authority of the Consuls, Elspeth Smite, Boonbringer Valkyries, even split ups and temporary lockdowns. Everything about this list screams post-board against mono red. If they don't get a screaming nemesis to cut out your life gain, you are going to roll them. So I like where they went with this list. It was a great week 1 hedge for what they expected to see, and clearly it worked out. The question I'm going to have is, do we need to hedge harder against Dimir? Do we need Sanguine Evangelist? Do we need Dust Animus? Do we need these early flyers to ensure that they can't just get a quick Kaido into Enduring Curiosity and ruin us? And that, I think, will be the question for this archetype as we go into week 2.
Okay. Okay. I have another question for the archetype. I think probably on a lot of people's minds. How does this deck deal with Screaming Nemesis and burn spells to turn off the life gain? I mean, can it close the game against red quickly enough in that case?
I think this could be a reason we push into cards like Sanguine Evangelist because they provide a counter clock while not being dead in the early game against red. This is also why cards like Virtue of Loyalty are excellent, and why we may even look at cards like Toby, the friend, Beast Friend, or whatever the hell the card is called,
Yeah.
because it closes out games faster. And at a certain point, we can be a mono white token deck with a certain amount of spot removal that can play through Screaming Nemesis, turning off our life gain. It's not easy. It's not easy. But let's also note that it isn't easy for them to put together 4 mana to do that. That is a deck that typically only runs 20 lands. So that fourth land is not forthcoming, so to speak, a lot of the time.
Okay. Good segue into trying to beat them fast, beat them quick. Let's talk about Boros Burn.
L1XO took down Thursday's 60-player MTGO challenge with Boros Burn, and let's take a look at this build. Now, this is about where we all expected the archetype to go, if we're being frank. I don't think this has a whole lot of surprises, but it has a few. The first is Fugitive Codebreaker. I had forgotten this card was in Standard, not going to lie. Straight up forgot it existed, but in a deck that's going to be playing all this cheap early burn, this turns into Ancestral Recall by the time you hit turn 5 or 6. And that's not a small thing for red to have in terms of staying power. Also, if you get it early, it's still just another Prowess Haster. That's not bad. You don't mind playing it early just to get the points of damage in. You pair it with any burn spell, and it's bolting him to the face every turn on its own. So I like that. The mana base is hurts. It hurts. It hurts that we're on Raucous Counter and we'll like, I want Verge so badly for these colors, and we're not gonna get it. And it hurts. It hurts. So I don't know if you need to go into more Thran portals to ensure the early plays. I don't like the fact that comes in tapped in the first 2 turns. Like we're an aggro deck. That's 4 tapped lands in an aggro deck. That wrong signs in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah, that makes me really, really nervous too. So, does this deck does it need Screaming Nemesis in the main to turn off life gain? Trying to flip the last question, especially in a world that's full of life gain right now.
I'm going to honestly say, and this will be my hot take for the entire episode, if you're not playing Screaming Nemesis as a 4 of in the main of your red-based aggro deck, I think you're wrong. I just think you're wrong at this point. Results notwithstanding, Screaming Nemesis is so good. It's so difficult to deal with. Many archetypes do not have good answers to this, including mirror matches. If you are playing red aggro mirrors, and you're going to play a lot of them in the first few weeks, Screaming Nemesis is about as close to a mirror breaker as you are going to get, because it allows those board states where if you just hold it back, do they want to swing into it and then you're getting a 2-for-1 in your favor? They definitely don't want to monstrous rage the creature and deal like 6 points of damage to it and then take 6 to the dome from it, while simultaneously you get all that blocking. I think it's too important not to be playing. That's where I'm at with it.
Okay. All right. Well, that does it for our tier 1 archetypes. Let's go ahead and go into tier 2, where I'll start things with Zer's Domain. Frisky Frasca trophied a 68-player MTGO challenge this past Sunday with Zer's Domain, pleasing our impending overlords. I love this deck. What did they do differently, though? Well, let's talk first about the scroll shifts. A couple of copies of scroll shift in here, not only, as, get rid of a hurdle, but also you've got so many blink targets. Don't forget that you can also, aside from your overlords, blink temporary lockdown, double up on the value of that, get ETB triggers, repeated from triggered beanstalks. So there's multiple uses for this card in here. I think a couple of copies are warranted. The blue overlord has found its way into the deck. I've almost want to call this a Bant domain, but this helps you find your board wipes, find your removal, find your pieces that you need. And I think you just, if you're not having at least a couple copies, maybe 3 or 4 even, I think you're wrong as well. you need the blue overlord. Full set of Zur. Lean into that strategy. It used to be just 3 copies. We've moved up to a full set. I want notables in the sideboard. The 3 not on my watch. Use that card against your aggro strategies, and Pop Hatch formation, just hitting the demon decks, hitting all the flyers, hitting all the enchantments right now. So very usable sideboard pieces.
So, Max, it seems like I've been looking through a ton of deck lists this week, and it seems that to start the season, everyone has abandoned the Jace mill plan off the sideboard. Do you think this helps Domain?
I believe it does. You're drawing so many cards with Beanstalk and the Overlords. It's easy to find yourself in a situation where you're going to get milled pretty easily. So the fact that that's backed off a little bit might be one of the reasons why Zer's Domain is starting to see an uptick in players piloting. So I'm looking forward to playing this deck myself here in the next few weeks and seeing if that trend continues.
I mean, until Domain starts taking down tournaments, I don't know that we're going to see a ton of Jason sideboards, but then again, mono white's running back too. And if you have Domain plus mono white, maybe the mill strategy comes back. Maybe it does. We'll have to wait and see. But for a deck that isn't going to wait and see, let's talk about mono red.
Alessandro Mazzi took down a local 29-player RCQ in Italy this past weekend with mono red aggro. So let's look at this particular build. First, I want to say mana sinks are important in your mono reds. Right here, you've got Hired Claw, which is a perfect mana sink. Scales, and you've also got Burst Lightning, which you may look at that kicker and think that's pretty expensive. But if you find yourself in a Mexican standoff late game kind of situation, that's going to come in useful. Full sets of lightning strikes and burst lightnings make this an obvious, sub archetype as a burn deck. Burn is back. It's no secret. Screaming Nemesis. We're going to keep talking about this card, but 4 copies of Screaming Nemesis. Obviously, that's going to mitigate the life gain strategies that are popular right now. You've got Warzov decks. You've got mono white. There are several life gain strategies hoping to outdo aggro, and this is going to stop that from happening. In addition, you've got Sunspine links in the sideboard. This furthers really that whole mitigation, but notably also attacking the greedy mana bases. If Domain is back, then maybe Sunspine Link sees play there as well.
Makes sense. Now, you've got all these different options for red-based aggro. You've got like 5 variants at this point, Max. Why mono red instead of Boros Burn?
I've got a couple of reasons I can think of right off the top of my head. One, the monocolor makes it a super easy mana base, and that's what they wanted to do with Foundations, was present easy decks for people to start building, start teaching deck building fundamentals to standard players. And I think this was one way to do it, was to make burn a thing, make mono red a thing again. And then, like I said, also with the scaling threats, Hired Claw, that is a huge one drop right now, and it's definitely useful. It's definitely seeing play, and you can make use of that without having to go into multiple colors. So small advantages over the other colored aggro decks. I think mono red kind of has the potential to really overcome what Boros is trying to do, especially if Boros, like you said, runs into issues with having to use cards like Thran Portal. So I think mono red has a slight advantage there just with the mana base.
Fair. And speaking of decks that scale if they don't get interacted with quickly enough, let's talk about Temur Combo.
Oh boy. Everyone wants to jump on this deck and see how well it does, and Alessandro Smith snagged a trophy with it at the 41-player RCQ in Denver this past Sunday. Talented Otters. Let's see what this build is doing since the last time we took a look at it. I just want to say, for those of you who aren't familiar with this archetype, the combo centers around Valley Floodcaller, Enduring Vitality, being able to create a bunch of tokens, tap them down to cast your spells. I mean, essentially, your Swarm strategy with your Otters also in the late game, using Storm Chaser's talent, picking it back up with This Town Ain't Big Enough. It's 3 colors. You've got red in here. You've got access to Bitter Reunion, which, if utilized properly, can give your army haste, as can Song of Totentons, which is a lesser known card that can come in the late game as well and wreak havoc. Hats off to including Herbology Instructor in the sideboard. That's really spicy, and you're able to pay for that cost with this deck, the transform cost. So is the Blue Sun's Twilight, which is really a great 2-mana way of stealing a 6/6 demon off of Annex. So spicy sideboard there, but this deck is intriguing, it's interesting, and I wonder how well it'll do in the coming weeks.
So, Max, I look at this list, and it is difficult to understand exactly where the strengths and the weaknesses are. This is a deck that very few people are piloting because it is complex, and the ones that are piloting it, even fewer are doing it well enough that it matters. But where do you think this deck struggles traditionally?
It's hard to identify, right, or hard to pin down. I think that's the reason why people want to pilot this deck, is because no one expects it. But your traditional enchantment hate, you're starting to see Terror Sunders in the main of Golgari, for example, or Domain, and any deck that goes underneath. Because as I was saying, there's some really good late game, mid to late game strategies here. If you can get underneath before that happens with a low curve Boros, mono red, or aggro deck, I think those are traditionally what's going to outdo this deck.
Fair, fair. Now, speaking of another deck that has had some issues with aggro, but is correcting them slowly but surely, let's talk about Golgari Ramp.
So Golgari Demons' cousin, Golgari Ramp. Mr. Bank 12 won a 35-player 10K trial on Friday at SCG Columbus with Golgari Ramp. Really keeping the archetype on our radar. Week 1 of Foundation Standard. I was surprised to see it, but it's here. Let's see what they shifted. First off, I got to point out, no Llanowar Elves. You would think this was the archetype that wanted Llanowar Elves the most, but no. Instead, this deck, I think one of the big advantages is it focus on the turn 1, turn 2 early game interaction instead, with its removal, its disruption. We're still seeing 3 main board duresses. We've got 4 up the beanstalks, plus your Overlord of the Hauntwoods. That's really the core of the deck, your core package, giving you draw advantage, giving you ramp capabilities. 2 Terror Sunders in the main. Make note of that. We're starting to see that be a trend. The split for removal is a 2-3-3 split between Cut Down, Go for the Throat, and Anoint with Affliction. Anoint with Affliction, notably very useful against all the 3 drops you're starting to see in some of the mid-range decks. And Shelly made a comeback here with 2 Shellys in this deck. I think that's pretty well placed when you're starting to see a heavy card advantage, resource wars based meta.
That makes sense. Now, we kind of addressed this. Golgari Demons has embraced Llanowar Elves. This deck hasn't. So why are we picking this over Golgari Demons?
Well, I guess card advantage doesn't really sting you pre-demon the way it does with Annex, right? Quicker access to cards like Deadly Cover-Up, Gix's Command to clean up your aggro board states. I think this deck just interacts at a higher level a lot better. It prepares for the aggro matchup a little bit better, whereas Golgari Demons is sort of narrowly focused on getting to Annex, getting the demons out, getting to its card advantage. So I don't know. I feel like this deck has access to board wipes in a way that deck does not. Like, it's not afraid to put Gix's Command in the main or Deadly Cover-Up in the main. So maybe that's why Golgari Ramp is starting to see a little bit of an uptick in play.
That's fair. And I mean, the lack of elves means that you have no cut down targets. You have almost no Anoint with Affliction targets. Like you said, it's immune to a lot of the early game interaction, and perhaps that's where it's getting that advantage, where everybody has 8 to 10 dead spells sitting in their hand game 1 while you just slowly ramp past them. I could see that. But with that, we wrap up our tier list. It's on to Brewer's Corner. Love this segment. Favorite one every single week. Max, you want to kick things off and tell us a little bit about Dimir Reanimator?
Oh yeah, Dimir Reanimator. Love playing this list as well. But credit to the MTG Rebellion Discord for getting together and work on this one. Removal suite is dense here, and that's what I like about it. It's the early interaction, 3-4-4 split between Cut Down, Go for the Throat, and all important right now, Anoint with Affliction. You've also got the 1 copy of Bitter Triumph. You might trade out a few of the early removals for more Bitter Triumph if you want more discard capability. But 1 copy here, which allows you to discard one of those big pieces you want to reanimate. A card that came back, I forgot this was in Standard, but Evangel of Synthesis, full set, that comes in. You're able to discard. That's important on turn 2. 3 copies of Kiora, also great for discarding, for dumping. You get to dump 2 cards in that case. And Zombify is really, I think, why we're starting to see people toy with Reanimator again. Having 4 mana value Zombify versus your traditional 5 mana value Reanimator spell actually makes quite a bit of difference. But you also have 4 copies of No One Left Behind. So you can target your Oculuses for cheap, your Keywords for cheap, or you can, mid-game pull a Valgavoth.
Fair. And I mean, I can tell you I've played a lot of mono red recently on the ladder, just doing some testing. And one of my 2 losses was to that deck. Was to somebody going turn 4 Valgavoth twice in 3 games. And I'm just sitting there with mono red yeah. Guess that's that then. There
what the hell do you do there?
Right? There's no way through it. And they're like, oh, Screaming Nemesis. Well, you're still going to get the first 9 life, and then you can close the game out. So, It's pretty hard to deal with, I can tell you that. But
Yeah.
we've got a spicy brew here. Let's talk a little bit about Rakdos Pact. So credit to Free Education for taking third in an MTGO challenge with this list. I'm going to go ahead and just say that I don't like the way this list is put together. I have a very different build that's currently 6-0 in the top 1,000 of Mythic. If you have subscribed to Coffee and Grinders, there's a sideboard guide and a deck list waiting for you there. I will be doing some more testing of it. That said, the core concept of this is really cool. I love that we have Beseech the Mirror and we have a combo deck at long last, because we have the ability to throw Demonic Pact onto the battlefield, and we have the ability to just send it on over to them so that they can lose the game on their upkeep. You also have the ability to just bargain it away if you don't necessarily have another way to get Harmless Offering. You can just bargain it. That's part of what Torch the Tower is good for. It's part of what Beseech the Mirror is good for. You can sacrifice these enchantments after you get the maximum amount of value. Let's also look at the fact that Urbrask's Forge gives you tokens that you get to bargain. You don't necessarily have to swing with one. You can just play this on 3, and then on turn 4, Urbrask's Forge activates. We go to post-combat. You bargain it with Beseech the Mirror, get a Demonic Pact. Now they're facing down a Forge and a Pact. That is not an easy battle state to deal with.
Yeah, and I can tell you from experience, if you don't have in hand the way to deal with that offering card, you're done. I mean, that's game. That's it.
Absolutely. And with that, let's move it along to Mono Black Vampires. Love it.
I know. I'm shocked that I'm shocked to see it, but also kind of not surprised. This should definitely be an archetype. But credit to Robert Taylor, aka Fire Shoes, for bringing us this one and winning an event with it, winning an RCQ this last weekend. That's amazing. 4-2-4 split here in the interaction between Cut Down, Anoint, and Go for the Throat. So heavy early interaction. We're starting to see that be a theme. New card to Standard, Gatekeeper of Malakir, can create the potential for a 2-for-1 here by, kick it, force your opponent to sacrifice. Calastria Highborn also creates really great drain opportunities throughout the match if that's the vampire that's left on the board. But you can activate whenever it or another vampire dies. Slasher and Bloodletter combo is here as well, and I believe Mono Black is the best shell for it, honestly, just because of the cost of Bloodletter. I think this archetype can handle it. So well placed here. It's really a grindy deck. There's no shortcut to winning other than to just grind here. You've got Preacher, you've got Nighthawk, which has evasive damage, and you've also got Bloodletter, doubling your clock. So I think this deck has some potential. I'm really happy to see a new Kindred archetype win an RCQ. That's exciting. That's awesome for Standard.
Yeah, I think we finally found a build of Bloodletter that I'm on board with fully, because it's just seamlessly integrated into what's already kind of just a black mid-range deck that can go very aggressive if it needs to. But you have so much removal built in, you have so much recursion built in, and oh, by the way, Bloodletter KOs you on turn 4 if you're not careful. That's spicy.
Yeah.
That's a very spicy list that merits some further testing. But we're going to move it along to the last brew, Gruul Raccoons. I'm going to go ahead and give credit to the MTG Arena ladder for making me play this, lose to this, put this together, and then subsequently lose a bunch of matches trying to tune it. Yep, as per usual, lost to a weird brew, tilted, and immediately built it. And yeah, I don't know that this is good. I'm not going to claim this is good. I am going to say that there was somebody bouncing around the top 1,000 of Mythic playing this, and it beat the crap out of what I was playing at the time. So it's got some moves to it. I don't know that this is going to be tier 1, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm just going to say that I think further experimentation is worth doing. You do get to play 4 Scrap Shooter in a format filled with Unholy Annex. That's pretty nice. You do get to play 4 Keen-Eyed Curator in a format that has Reanimation, that has Oculus. That's pretty nice. You get all the early interaction, and you still get the elves to ramp into your game plan. Also pretty nice. And this Byway Barterer, this happens more often than you'd think. You get to this late game scenario where you just draw a card, expend 4, and then you've Ancestraled that turn. And that happened against me a few times, which wasn't fun. So, it's a thing.
Yeah, can't beat them, join them. I dig it.
And that's going to go ahead and bring us to our final segment, Ahead of the Curve. Now, Max, we looked at 12 archetypes in our recap. What are you going to play going into week 2 of Foundation Standard?
So this doesn't have the best matchups. There are some problematic matchups here, but I'm acknowledging the meta share right now. And I'm going to go with Boros Convoke to go underneath. So changes to this deck. Y'all have probably seen me pilot this deck if you've ever seen any of my streams in the last year. This is one of the most popular decks for me to pilot that you'll see on stream. Percussionist is going to act as our Gleeful Demolition fodder. That's just basically what that's in there for. You get the bonus of being able to play an extra card, maybe find your land drop. So it's very helpful for fixing. The second Yodian, I used to have 2 Yodian frontliners. The second one went away to the first copy of Arabella. We're going with Arabella in our 2-drop slot. And we got rid of a third case of the Gateway Express, instead going for the slot for the second Arabella. Partially because going with Arabella, you have tension with cards that increase your power. So we're going to lean on Arabella for testing for the next few weeks. New card, 3 copies of Sky Knight Squire. Scales really well with Gleeful Demolition. Also provides a needed aerial blocker for the deck, which, Demons is a reality. Deep Cavern Bats are a reality. That's just something that's required right now. Notable in the sideboard, 3 copies of Dryad and Militant. I think the Oculus deck is coming back. Reanimator is coming back. So, I think there's a tendency here to want to do something about that. And Dryad Militant is probably the cheapest, easiest way for this deck to try to tackle that. Look, the basic gist is we're still in a creature-friendly meta where board wipes are in tension with what the other decks are doing, even the mid-range decks. So there's still a lot of single-target removal, and this deck does well in a meta filled with mostly single-target removal. So take advantage of that while you can.
I'm going to go ahead and say that Dryad Militant is for aggro against Oculus, what Authority of the Consuls is for control against aggro. It's just that, if you get it on the play turn 1, oh my god, does it feel devastating. And if you draw it on turn 6, not so much. Not so much. But, God, if you get it early, Max. It's quite a card. That said, I'm going to go ahead and push over to my pick, which is Golgari Demons. Alrighty, so not a whole lot's changed. I fixed the mana base. Yep, went ahead and did that. That's why that Murex is sitting there, so that we have our 14 green sources and 14 black sources on turn 1, so that we are hitting all of our 8/1 drops right here correctly. It also makes sure that we have our 18th black source, so that we are guaranteed into Arcfiend. These are worth doing. Other things of note. The Sword of Once and Future. I'm playing 2 of them at this point. This card just blows up Dimir. It's so good against them. They have basically no answer for it. I'm here for it. It's won me so many matches at this point that I'm like, yep, 2 copies, totally worth it. That's how you're going to sideboard anyway. You're not necessarily going to want Arcfiend of the Dross against them. You're going to want the little Dirtles to run the distance for you, and they're going to with that sword. So, love that. Terra Sunder, by the way, when you exile it to flash it back with sword, you can just pay the 1 in a black kicker when you do that, and then it becomes 2 mana, exile any non-land permanent on the battlefield. Feels pretty good when you get to do that.
Wow, that's not bad at all. Good choice. I'm probably going to add a second copy of Sword of Once and Future to my Golgari list.
Fair. And with that, I think we're at the finale.
Oh yeah, that's another week in the books. Thank y'all for supporting us. Special shout out to our members who support the Rebellion by watching these all the way through. Now, we have our Foundation Starter Kit out now on the Rebelcast, both on YouTube and Spotify. And for the next episode, which we're recording tomorrow, we'll have a special interview with someone you've probably seen around the Brewers Corner, that Mono Black guy, talking to us about budget deck building fundamentals. So look forward to that. That should be out soon. But Stay the Meta will be back in 2 weeks with more analysis.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Every single click helps, and we appreciate it. And until next time, Rebels, untap, upkeep,
Resist.